Last week, a terrible attack in Washington took place. Yaron and Sarah were gunned down because they were staffers at the Israeli embassy. A horrific anti-Semitic attack. Looking back on our history, we wonder, how did we survive? We were always second-class citizens at best, tolerated perhaps, and then expelled from many countries, from France, from England, and of course from Spain, let alone the most recent atrocities at the Holocaust. We just gave a course of the Jewish Learning Institute in the Jewish Center, and we focused on some colorful profiles in Jewish history. The great heroes who saved other people, who taught the Torah, who kept Judaism alive and Jewish culture alive and the people alive during these difficult times. And you can't help but think, how is it possible? And wonder, how is it possible that we are still here today? It doesn't make sense. There's no rationale. There's for every reason that we should not have been here. We had no status, we had no land, we couldn't own any land, we couldn't do commerce, we were held up in ghettos in Italy, we were kicked out of France, we were kicked out of England. How is it possible? What kept the Judaism going? How is it possible today we're celebrating Judaism is flourishing like never before, despite all the challenges that we have? And of course, as you read the stories and look at the history, we realize that it's the Torah and Judaism that kept us together and kept us alive, simply because, in a simple sense, when there's culture and there's study and there's dedication to understanding of who we are and what the mission is, it's much easier to survive. And if, God forbid, when this persecution is one or two people who survive, they are able to rebuild because they have the documents, they have the teachings, they haven't forgotten what it means to be Jewish. Whereas the other people didn't have such dedication to their culture, to their belief system, and once they were persecuted or had a difficult time, they dropped it and lost all that culture. Of course, it's a miracle. Of course, we're here for a purpose, and we're going to be celebrating that on Monday, June 2nd, when we gather to celebrate the giving of a Torah and our people becoming a people at Mount Sinai 3,337 years ago. Now, what keeps us going, of course, is, as I said, is the Torah, and it's the miracle, the bond that we have, the eternal bond that we have with God. We're inseparable. We're inseparable from God. God is inseparable from us. Although we have some challenges, we are still His chosen people. This week, Shabbat, we're going to read and begin the book of Bamidbar, which is Numbers, which is all about the census. It begins with the census and has another census, a counting of the Jewish people, a counting of the Levites, a counting of each tribe, a counting of groups of 3 tribes, counting from people who are 20 to 60, counting from Levites who are 1 month old, and so on. And at the end of the Torah, at the end of the book, again we have a new census, a new counting, and the whole book is called the Book of Numbers. Why such an emphasis on the numbers? Why such an emphasis on counting? And why do we always read this Torah reading right before Shavuot? Well, one of the ideas is that there's a concept that if something is counted, it can't be lost, it can't be nullified. In Jewish law, there's rules about if something not kosher falls into something that's kosher and gets mixed in, if it's a certain amount, if it's 60 times the amount of kosher versus non-kosher, it's nullified, it's lost. That's as if it's not there, you can't taste it, and you could continue eating that food. However, if it's something that's counted, something special, something meaningful, something that you wouldn't just nullify and lose, then it doesn't become nullified. Something that's counted can't be nullified. And that's exactly the point of counting. When God counts us, make sure that we're not lost amongst the nations. We're not lost in the world, because we are counted. And that's why when we stood at Mount Sinai, every single one of us had to be there. We were all there because we had to stand up and be counted. We are important, each one of us. And I want to invite you to come celebrate Shavuot with us. It is customary to have dairy for the sweetness and the nurturing and nourishing of the milk, and dairy is symbolic of the Torah. The Torah is symbolic of milk, It nurtures and nourishes us. We're going to have a big celebration on Monday, June 2nd, 5:30 p.m. We're going to read the original 10 commandments. And then we're going to have a celebration. Our grandson Mendel is turning 1. And we'll reflect and read about what it means to be Jewish, what it means to have this message. Visit us, santafejcc.com/cheesecake, and join us for Shavuot. Stand up and be counted. Happy and meaningful Shavuot.